This is a video of a drive in northern Spain from Barcelona, which is on the Mediterranean side, to San Sebastian, which is on the Atlantic side. Now, it's not particularly long. I did go to a couple of these little towns. I didn't want to go into big depth. In this video, you can actually see my other videos, and they go into a lot more information. Santa Pau is kind of a cool little medieval town that's got some very nice little hikes close by. Again, watch the longer version if you want to get into more of the meat and potatoes of this town and the hikes that are around it, the volcanic hikes. Spain has done a great job of incorporating hiking and camping and exposure to nature within these communities. So I have to give them a big hats off. And also you're going to notice that, for example, like once you get out of Barcelona, well, you get into more rural type of communities. So it's not this, as you might see in America, huge urban sprawl. So to me, that's a far more livable and agreeable reality, is to incorporate nature in. And so another thing, there are a lot of things in this part of the country to go and see. So that depending on what your interests are, you have to spend a little bit of time to sort of factor in what are you interested in. Are you interested in small towns? Are you interested in monasteries? Are you interested in old historic buildings, etc.? So one would have to plan your trip according. This video is more just to give a general idea of what the northern part of Spain looks like. So Casa Albert is a vegan B&B. Excellent food, I have to say. I think they also serve dinner. We didn't eat dinner there, but the food was really excellent. Now, Casa Albert, it is slightly isolated in that the road leading to the old farm is very long and arduous and bumpy and nasty to get to. Once you are at Casa Albert, there's not a whole lot to do. If you're reading a book or writing a book and you're kind of going to stay put, not so bad. However, if anything that we found that was sort of interesting, we had to drive to get to, which isn't the most ideal setup. And this doesn't give you a very good idea of what the actual hotel looks like. It's actually it's really a Casa Rural, is rural homes. It's like hundreds of years old, this house that they've converted into a very nice B&B. Again, the main reason is because it was a vegan hotel, is why we stayed. Actually, it's really a B&B run by the family. So one of the side trips from Casa Albert down the valley and up the mountains is Sant Llorenç de Morundy. Can't say that it's a particularly significant from historical standpoint. However, they do have some very nice hikes higher up in the mountains. So if you are more interested in mountaineering and hiking in the mountains, I would probably stay in this side of the valley, which puts you closer to the mountains. Now, I'm not going to say if Sant Llorenç is the place to stay, because look, it's not. It looks like a fairly conventional place. We did take a couple nice trips up in the mountains. I had to show you this because one of the few times we actually saw a person working in the fields or even outside, a local person. This is a lower trail, and again, these lower trails were not particularly spectacular. The ones that were high up in the mountains were far more exciting and far more interesting. We're going to be heading to another hike, Santuari de Lord. I'm assuming that means the sanctuary of the Lord. Interesting. So they've built this church sanctuary way up in the mountains, and there are no roads that lead to it. So you have to hike to get to it. So it's almost set up as a pilgrimage. Catholics like their congregation to suffer. So I don't go into a lot of depth on this, but I have another video that goes into a little bit more information on this particular hike. So we finished the hike, we're leaving, and it's got This is a cool little feature going through this tunnel. Almost looks like it was blown out by hand. So Spain has also done a very nice job of damming up their rivers for hydropower and saving water and creating recreational areas. I also think because we are in the Pyrenees, close to the Pyrenees, there's probably a fair bit of snow melt to replenish the water supply. Again, the main idea of this video is to give a viewer an idea of what they might encounter on a road trip traveling from Barcelona to San Sebastian, which really isn't all that long. I think it's something like 500 kilometers. I mean, one could do it easily in 2 days, but that's not the objective. The objective is to spend your time and actually explore this part of the country and see some cool towns, villages. And you'll notice that it's quite varied, that the countryside is quite varied. Some of it is quite mountainous, and some of it is just plain mountainous, and some of it is a little bit more flat in the valley areas, more arid, if you will. So it's not all just one. So Ainsa is sort of a neat little stopping point. We didn't stay here. It's got a lot of history, and I have another video that goes into a lot more depth on Ainsa, so if you're interested in that, watch that video. This is just sort of a quick rundown. This is what it looks like. This is the fort that's just outside of Ainsa. So there are many of these types of historic memorials that they refer to them as throughout Spain. We kind of did a lot of this on the fly. We had a couple ideas, but as we drove, we sort of had, let's take a look at this place. And some of it had to do too with how long we were driving and were we ready for a little bit of an adventure. And also, just to drive is not the most exciting thing to do. It's far more interesting to stop someplace, have an experience, get into the environment, because I mean, look at this is a beautiful environment, and to have an experience with it by taking a hike. And again, I'll say that Spain has done a great job of having very well worked out parks and hiking throughout this area. Quite varied, a little bit more arid, less water, less rainfall, we can see. So I would say that Torla by far had to be my favorite small town. Not only was the people and the environment really cool, but you could park your car, and they had multiple ways to get into the park without having to get your car and park it, and so I really like that. Nice little restaurants, the accommodations were really great. So that kind of completes most of the small towns. So we're headed towards our final destination, which is San Sebastian. I mean, San Sebastian's layout being almost nestled on the ocean, tucked up against the mountains, is really a beautiful sight. I do go into more in depth on a video for San Sebastian that I would recommend that you watch. It's also some great hikes out of San Sebastian. Thank you for watching.